There's this country song out right now, and the words go something like, God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about human nature and how interesting people can be, how some of us are very much alike, and then of course we have our differences, and some of the experiences I've had along that line. The first thing that comes to my mind is Nathaniel Branden, who is a psychologist and writer. He says that all of us, you included right now, are making 3 different decisions. The first decision is, are you going to make your own decisions, your own choices, or are you going to allow somebody to make them for you? Okay. The second one is, are you going to think intellectually or react emotionally? And the third one is escaping me. But I'd like to share a little bit about what has happened with me along the lines of meeting people serendipitously, and how that has impacted my life and things that I've seen in relation to that. When I was 15 years old, I was extremely interested in track and field. And the neighboring town had a guy named Hayes Jones, who at that time was probably the fastest man in the world. And he had won a bronze medal in Rome and went on later to win a gold medal in Tokyo in high hurdles. So we went to see him at an event that honored him in Pontiac. And while we were there, he told us, we said, we'd like to see you run. The only time he was running in Michigan was in Kalamazoo. So my buddy Phil Raygas and I decided we would hitchhike to Kalamazoo. You could hitchhike in those days, and actually get a ride. And so we hitchhiked over to Kalamazoo to watch him run, and the next day we watched him run. And at that time, I had young eyes. I could see most things pretty well. And my goal was to see his hand action over the hurdles. And it was fascinating because I was focused on that. That's what I wanted to see. That's what I came to see. His hand action over the hurdle was so fast you could not see it. And after he ran, we went down on the field to talk to him. And he asked us a question. He says, what are you guys doing here? We said, well, we came to see you run. He said, well, I appreciate that, but why are you in Kalamazoo? Because he had met us at Pontiac. And we said, to see you run. He said, well, how'd you get here? We said, hitchhike. He said, how'd you get home? We said, hitchhike. He said, no, you're riding with me. So I'm 15 years old, and my ride home from Kalamazoo back to the Pontiac area was with the fastest man in the world. I found that really fascinating. As a matter of fact, to this day, I don't know if you've ever been in awe of somebody like I was in awe of him, but he said, you guys need to eat. We stopped at McDonald's. What do you want? And we're all like, hey, we don't need anything. We don't, shy like that. He bought us a couple cheeseburgers and a vanilla shake. And to this day, if I see, taste, or hear of a vanilla shake, I think of Hayes Jones. So 3 o'clock that morning, Hayes Jones, who had to teach school the next weekend, dropped me off at my door. Now the point I want to make with this story is this. You don't know when people are going to show up in your life. It's often serendipitous when you see them again. Fast forward to 45 years later. Hayes Jones is now running for the state legislature. And he comes to the North Oakland County Board of Realtors to get their endorsement and any funds they might have available for a candidate. Well, at this point in time, I'm chairman of that committee. Now, when Hayes came in, I knew who he was, but believe it or not, I looked differently than I looked when I was 15. So he gave us his presentation, and usually our committee will let the candidate know what we're going to do. So there was some conversation. I said, well, I'd like to interrupt. And I shared with the committee the story I just shared with you. Well, Hayes Jones got our endorsement and as much money as we are allowed to give to support the candidate running for that office. So my point is this: you don't know when they're going to show up again in your life. So that's one characteristic of people that I find fascinating. Now another one is about the things we have in common. For example, the person next to you. Glance at the person next to you, if they don't mind. And I'm going to tell you how to tell if that person has problems. And what you do is you focus on their chest. Okay?
Their chest?
On their chest. And you look for even the slightest movement. Because if they're breathing, they have problems. Everybody's got problems. So now we've established a couple things. Everybody's got problems. Oh, by the way, those of you that are defensive, when I said look at the other person, you can tell if they got problems or not, you're saying, no way do they know. Those of you that tend to be towards guilty, so how'd they find out? So we've all got those tendencies. The other tendency I think is common, is kind of fun to watch, and that is everybody wants to be important. And I have a formula for being important. And that is, don't be important. If you're talking to somebody, or better yet, listening to somebody, focus on them exclusively. It is natural but undesirable for us to be sitting there saying, you're telling me about you, and I'm thinking, wait till I tell you about me. And I have a little story about that. I trained for coaching out in California for a while. I was trained to coach real estate agents, and I had a great teacher, a guy named Joe D. from Las Vegas. And he told us a story about the trip from Las Vegas to Santa Ana, California, a 1-hour trip. And on that trip, he was practicing this philosophy. We're never going to go back to me. Well, I'm going to learn all I can about you. Joe D's about 39, short and balding. Okay. The girl next to him is 19 and beautiful. They land in Santa Ana after he'd spent all this time. He's practicing what he talks about. You take the interest in the other person. So as they're leaving the plane, with tears streaming down her face, she throws her arms around him and said, I'm so glad we met like this. And it was just an hour later that Joe was relating that story, and he said, she has no idea who I am. So I guess I'd like to leave you with this about people. Everybody's got problems. Treat them right, because you never know when they're going to show up again. And if you want to be important, make other people important.